Hey everyone, Sparks back with another Goddess Victory Nikke video, and Diesel and Brid have changed roles. So right after this, I'm going to review Brid and do a skill analysis of her, so make sure you check that out. It'll be uploaded like a few minutes after this one. But right now we're talking about Diesel. So Diesel Winter Sweets, our girl who loves strawberry candy. Do you like her new look? I gotta be honest, it's pretty cute. It is pretty cute. I like the boots. Diesel has always been like a very attractive kind of like IRL looking character, and she's had a ton of skins, and now she's getting an alternate. No wonder her buff icon is a microphone. God help us all. Oh my god, that burst animation is hilarious. I actually haven't even looked at the burst animation until just now recording it. But we all know that we should be a little bit afraid of Diesel singing, as well as her trying to stuff candy down her throat. But is she good? So let's go ahead and take a look at it. This time, she is a rocket launcher. She is a burst 3 attacker, code fire, ammo 6, reload time 2 seconds, blah, blah, blah. All this is like pretty kind of standard stuff. She is one of these units that doesn't fit on one side. At least it's not 3, but it's 2. So her first skill is Aha Mic Test. Activates when entering full burst for the first time after using own burst skill. Affects self, intro. Critical damage goes up 20% continuously. This effect cannot be dispelled. Effect persists after revival. Okay, so if she goes down and you revive her with like Miracle Fairy Anne or Rapunzel or something, she gets the buff again. And she only gets this one time. If she uses her burst skill, she gets 20% damage. Then, if you enter full burst with her not using her burst skill, she also gets a highlight buff, which is exactly the same thing. 20% up, critical damage also can't be dispelled, and it persists upon revival. So after you go through 2 burst cycles, one with her and one without her, then you are going to get a 40% critical damage buff. Now, critical damage has always been pretty mid, but just permanently having 40% critical damage up does sound pretty good. I'm gonna be honest. I think that's pretty decent. I mean, it's for basically doing nothing, right? You're just gonna automatically be going through your bursts anyway. Activates when entering full burst. Affects self if in intro status. So if you got that first burst, sustained damage goes up 60% for 10 seconds, and activates when entering full burst. Affects self if in highlight status. So if you burst your second time, and then also forever after that, of course. Sustained damage goes up 235% for 10 seconds. So you're going to get a sustained damage buff after your second burst cycle of 295%. That is a very big sustained damage buff. Diesel is looking like she might be the best sustained damage unit we've gotten so far. That said, sustained damage has always struggled, whether it was, Mihara, or the summer units with, Sakura and Rosanna. We've gotten a couple other sustained damage. I think Crust buffs sustained damage. We've gotten a few of them, and it never really hits. Now, I think this is the most sustained damage we've seen so far. So she might be good, and she's got a lot more things to do too. So it says activates on her second skill. I'm going to sing now. Everybody take cover. Activates when an ally or self destroys an enemy part. Affects all allies except self. Mute. Gains immunity to noise pollution continuously. And this comes in on her burst, which we'll talk about in a second. And then activates when an ally or self destroys an enemy part. Affects self. Sustained damage up 68% for 15 seconds. So now she's going up like 360-ish%. Assuming that these buffs line up when you use full burst and you destroy a part. They're going to overlap for at least 10 seconds. Then you'll have an extra 5 seconds of the 68%. And then activates when attacking with full charge. While not in full burst. So anytime you're not full bursting, which honestly shouldn't be that much, because ideally you're only gonna have a few seconds in between if you're using good burst cooldown units and you're generating a lot of bursts with like Siren or whoever. But if you're not in full burst, she is going to get sustained damage up 318% for 3 seconds. So for a couple of shots, if you do full charge, you're going to get another massive sustained damage buff. And if it stacks up 2 times, you're going to get 640 or 36% just for attacking twice with full charge. Again, massive sustained damage, honestly. I'm just not totally convinced. And this is very much the same niche. So we got sustained damage and parts damage, which is basically exactly what Sakura did. And she kind of just looks like maybe a better version of Sakura. Of course, they're totally different elements, right? So Summer Sakura is wind, and Diesel here is fire. And then activates when entering full burst, affects the stage target, deals 63% of final attack as sustained damage every 1 second for 9 seconds. So with all these sustained damage buffs, then she's finally going to deal some sustained damage when entering full burst. If it's a stage target, she's going to do massive ticks every second for 9 seconds. Now let's take a look at her burst. So her burst skill is the standard 40-second cooldown. It's called La La La. Affects all enemies. Damage taken up 25% for 10 seconds. All right, that's already great. So 25% damage up, that's great. I mean, Blanc was really good because she made the enemies take more damage. Even Delta managed to be really useful in the last raid because of the damage taken buff on the enemy. So this is very good. And having that built into your attackers, so you don't even need a support to give you like extra damage taken, is pretty cool. This is definitely like, kind of seeing the power creep of like different, kits being combined into one. And then it says deals 18% of final attack as sustained damage every 1 second for 9 seconds. So again, doing a bunch of sustained damage, and you're going to get all those buffs. And that's going to be a lot of sustained damage. It's going to be a lot of sustained damage. Is it better than just like nuking them? We'll find out. Affects the enemy if the enemy is the stage target, deals 181% of final attack as sustained damage every 1 second for 9 seconds. So even more sustained damage. It should be pretty effective. And then down here, it says, if all allies except self are in highlight status, they get noise pollution, which is hit rate down 100% for 1 second. So you're trying to avoid this with being immune to it, right? Because over here, it said gains immunity to noise pollution. So activates when an ally or self destroys a parts. You want to be destroying parts as often as possible so you don't get this noise pollution debuff, but also affects all allies if self is in highlight status. Stat count of mute goes down. So you'll reduce those stacks of mute, which is, again, what's going to make you immune to it. So you just want to keep destroying parts. So that can make a big difference depending on what boss you are fighting. We'll see what the event boss is. Presumably it's going to be something with a lot of parts that probably regenerate as well. Honestly, these are pretty big numbers. I think Diesel could be pretty crazy against the right boss. If you're fighting a wind boss that has a bunch of parts, I think there's no way Diesel ends up being bad. I think she could be a top tier unit in that specific niche. But that is very niche. We're looking at bosses specifically that have parts, and preferably ones that regenerate often and are wind weak. So this is very, very niche. But I feel like she's going to be probably very good for the event because they are, of course, going to give us a boss where she can shine. She looks nice. I like her design. Diesel has been a very popular character from day one, and the devs love her. Hopefully you guys do too. Let me know your thoughts on her. Again, I think very, very niche. Probably very strong, but very niche. So, if you're not a big fan of Diesel or you're just trying to collect all the winter units, she might be skippable because I think she's going to be a good unit from what we can see on paper. It's going to require testing, but from what we can see on paper, she will be a good unit, but very specific. This is a very focused unit. And so if, you're like, I'm not sure if I'm like a big fan of her and I want to save some resources, we also are going to have the New Year's event coming up soon, then you can probably skip on her because the amount of bosses where you're going to need her are just going to be like very few and far in between. So that's what I have to say about that. Let me know your thoughts on our terrible singing girl. She's super cute. She's super nice. She's trying to give you a sugar high, and she's probably going to be good in this raid. All right, don't forget to subscribe and check out that Brid video coming up next, and I'll catch you guys in the next video or stream.